Hey folks, Joe Valley here. Welcome to another episode of the Quiet Light Podcast. We've sold close to $1 billion in transactions now over the last 17 years at Quiet Light. And one of the things I've seen consistently with entrepreneurs like myself, like Daniel James, who I just had on the podcast, like all of you that are listening that are entrepreneurs, is that we have an attitude of, I can do that attitude. And it propels us to the success that we have. The problem is there's not a filter on it sometimes. We think we can literally do anything. And until you get to a point in business where you've reached your own sort of physical and mental capacity, you don't outsource. And partially because when people outsource, sometimes they have very bad experiences, and oftentimes those are with agencies. And it causes me to hesitate to have agencies on the podcast sometimes, but this time I had no hesitation. Daniel James runs a company called Mint Marketing, Mint Performance Marketing. He's got an incredible history and resume going all the way back to, my brain is going blank now. It's, not Vine, not whatever it was, one of the early MySpace. There we go, folks. There we go. And you're hearing the fact that I don't edit. MySpace back in 2002 or 3 when he was there. And he founded Mint Marketing a few years ago. And just the whole wholesome approach to helping elevate brands and reach and retain customers is critical. And you can't do it on your own. And sometimes you can't bring in one person to do it unless they're going to outsource to a bunch of different experts or agencies. So he's not pitching the agency here. He's talking about influencer marketing. He's talking about TikTok. He's talking about SMS. He's talking about everything that they do that can help you directly if you're doing it yourself, or ultimately if you do end up working with an agency like Mint Marketing, Mint Performance Marketing. It might make sense. My point here is that just because you may have had a bad experience with an agency or your friend did, doesn't mean that they're all bad. That is my point. So let's jump in. Let's learn about what Daniel does. Let's learn about his background and how he helps people elevate their brands to much higher levels than they can on their own. Here we go. Daniel, welcome to the Quiet Life Podcast. How are you?
I'm doing great, Joe. Thank you. Thanks for having me on. Looking forward to chatting with you.
Good to have you here, man. I looked at your LinkedIn profile. You came highly recommended. I'm impressed with everything that you've done. So let's dig into it. I'm not going to read your LinkedIn profile. Can you give the audience some background on who you are, what you do, where you've been, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, definitely. I'm founder, CEO of Mint Performance Marketing. We're a full service performance agency based in LA with teams in New York, Manchester, England, and the Philippines. We're a team of just over 50. We work with Shopify, e-commerce brands on all things customer acquisition, customer retention. I started Mint about 4 years ago. Been in the industry for a long time. I'm an old dog in the space. I joined MySpace in 2004. So really at the very beginning of social media.
You might need to explain what MySpace is to some of the audience.
I know, members. You can tell people's age these days of whether they've heard of MySpace or not. It makes me feel old. MySpace was, really was the first social media network. It was a place to connect with friends, but it was you had to design your page. There was an element of UX UI involved in MySpace. You had your top 10 friends. You could upload music, and it is now what it probably always should have been, which is a creator social networking site. But back then it was a bit of kind of like, it was for creators and artists. It was also the first place I really knew of, or I think there was, where it was like just day-to-day interaction with your friends. And social media
online instead of at the local pub.
Online, exactly, yeah. Which for most people who were first on Facebook back in the day, it was things like, here's what I eat for lunch, here's where I'm going on the weekend. It was very basic kind of updates. It's evolved quite a lot since then, but. I was at MySpace for a couple of years. I then joined AOL, and I was doing strategy at AOL across their performance network and owned and operated properties. And I joined a company called Turn we were a digital social data DSP, DMP marketing media agency.
All right, hold on. Acronyms, they kill me.
DSP
Display advertising
demand
is DSP. DMP is what?
DSP is demand side platform, and DMP is data management platform. So a DSP is it's a programmatic machine learning algorithm. So it was when you executing digital marketing, it was programmatically delivered. And then a DMP is a data management platform, which is really just a customized data and analytics tool built in like SQL that you could query customer data and do really. I couldn't do it. I was the guy who said, "Hey, I want to know this." And then much smarter people than me would write an SQL query and provide me the data. But it was really powerful.
Is that done by Google Analytics now, or is it on across social media and all your marketing platforms?
I mean, for a company like Mint, we leverage Google Analytics and platforms like Triple Whale. A true DMP is it's customized, it's built. So an internal team built a DMP for us, for that company, to pull data from the DSP and other areas of marketing we were running. So lots of bigger companies will have customized data management platforms. Yeah, it was more of a customized play.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And you left. Well, what did you do at Turn? Again, this is what you did at Turn.
Yeah, so I was leading strategy again. So what does that mean? It was working with our key clients on their execution of digital and social and their data strategy as well. So it was Turn that actually moved me over to the US 9 years ago now. Great experience. I always wanted to move to the US ever since I first came here with MySpace. In fact, when I first came here with MySpace, my goal was to one day live in LA and run my own company. So
congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, I actually, it took me a while based on the visa process and everything else, but Turn made it happen, which I'll be eternally grateful to them for. And I got my green card through Turn as well. And then that's when I decided I kind of wanted to change from being, a big company working with really big brands. I started Mint, and the real vision for Mint was I want to work with purely e-commerce brands where what I do has a transformational impact on their business, right? When I was, leading strategy for a brand like Toyota, it's like, here's your budget. It's hundreds of millions, spend it. And if we get a percentage point efficiency increase, we'll be happy. It's like, yeah, it was great. Don't get me wrong, great people, exciting work. I learned a ton. But to apply everything I'd learned at MySpace, AOL, Turn onto founder-led, in the beginning stages, founder-led e-commerce brands, the impact is you can change people's lives. Yeah,
huge. Right? I mean, ultimately, if you help them be successful and you get to know them really well, when it really gets down to it, you're helping them grow their business so that they can put their kids through college and retire someday. It has that much of a personal impact in my experience when you work with founders. It's the favorite thing we do 100%. Here at Quiet Light as well. It's having a positive impact on people's, both buyers and sellers' lives at the end of the day. We happen to make a living doing it, but our goal is to help people more than anything else. It sounds like you've got the same approach.
1,000%. Yeah, that was the motivation.
What are the typical types of brands that you work with at Mint?
So we work with mainly Shopify brands, well, exclusively Shopify brands. It's a great platform. The integrations and the Mint tech stack is kind of set up to work really well with Shopify brands. And we're working with brands, on the low end, doing 50K a month in online revenue. On the high end, we've got brands who are doing north of 50 million a year.
Wow, that's quite the spread. And are they consumables? Are they hard goods? Are they liquid? I mean, is there any particular niche that you excel in, or do you have so many clients you're across all niches at this point?
There's some core verticals. We're not a verticalized agency, as in we only do this one specific type of product. I would say our strength is fashion and apparel. We work with a lot of fashion apparel brands. Maybe because I like fashion. Because
you're so hip and you're a fashionista. You get that. Tell everybody I asked about the hat. It looks like a
You
Detroit
did.
Tigers hat, and
No, it's fear of God.
fear of God.
Yeah, one of my favorite brands. Yeah, I'm always conscious of saying I like fashion because I don't want people to mistake that as me thinking I'm fashionable. I just like fashion, so don't confuse the two. Um, but yeah, no, fear of God, it's a great hat. So yeah, we have a lot of fashion and apparel brands, but we work with beauty, we work with CPG, health and wellness. We work with outdoor furniture brands. I think for us, it's like the vertical the vertical isn't as important, excuse me, as the makeup of the brand, the AOVs. Like, do you see what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
I do. Yeah.
the composition of the brand. I think we've been really successful, for example, with really high average order value brands. We've worked with some outdoor furniture brands where their AOV is like 2.5 grand. Now you tell people, can you be successful with a 2.5 grand product on TikTok? And most will say no. And we've been able to be. We work with a fitness machine. It's a vertical climber. If you've seen them, horrendous things. They're absolutely brutal.
I've never been on one. I've seen them before though. I avoid them like the plague.
Yeah, I tried to as well. But they sent me one, so I've got one in my garage, and I've never used it because it's just it's too much.
We'll look for that on sale
Again,
at eBay or something like that.
yeah, exactly. But again, high average order value. So it's pretty broad spread. I think for us, it's when we're thinking about whether we're the right fit for a client, it's more around do they have a good product? Do they have a good kind of like foundation for the brand? And based on how their performance has been previously, do we have the right capabilities to get them to where they want to be? The vertical isn't as important.
Based on everything that you've done, it seems like you would easily be classified as an expert in social media. In many things, probably, but given AOL and whatnot, social media, no. But
Yeah, I'd say humbly.
you're being humble. You're being
Yeah,
humble.
I'd say humbly, I'm an expert probably in social media and growth marketing for e-commerce.
Okay, so if a client came to you and they had a fixed budget and they could only do one thing, is there one particular advertising medium that you would focus on more than any other, or what is the approach? As people in the audience they're handling their own advertising, they're doing their own PPC, they're doing their own TikTok videos or whatever it might be, and posting on Twitter, doing whatever they can to get some traction and build their own brand and reputation. Is there a particular approach that you take with most clients, or if you're having a beer with somebody, you'd give them some advice off the cuff that, listen, you got to start here, you got to do this, you got to think about that?
Yeah, from a starting point, I think to answer it from this angle, the mistake a lot of people make is that paid ads is a silver bullet to success. For us, one of the first things we look at in that kind of lower revenue threshold brands is what's their retention marketing strategy, what's the foundation of the brand, and by foundation, I really mean your product offering, your website, your email, your SMS, the things that happen on the site, on the ecosystem. Because the last thing you want to do is invest money into paid advertising or influencers, send a bunch of traffic to a subpar website, no data collection, no follow-up on the customers you do acquire. We call it kind of a leaky bucket. It's like before you turn those paid taps on, you really want to make sure you have a solid foundation. Our whole approach as well and is the scalability of a brand is around your acquisition costs and your LTV. There's other metrics that we look at that are really important. A lot of talk in the industry is around contribution margin, like the actual profit, and totally get that. But really, from a front-facing marketing language talk, CAC and LTV.
So are you going to, do you turn clients away and say, listen, we'd love to help you, but you're not ready yet. You need to, do these things first so that you're spending money wisely and being able to, follow up with a customer and capture what we need to capture?
So we have in-house email, SMS, and website optimization capabilities. So if that's the starting point, we'll definitely advise starting there.
So you get to fix that first before you start spending money.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Before you turn that traffic driving activity on. And then even then, I think paid ads it's a good accelerator, but what you need to pay closer attention to initially, let's say you have the kind of website, your positioning, your offering, and your email and SMS in place, is the creative. You need to be able to have the capability to test and iterate off of creative. A really good way of doing that is partnering with creators and influencers. And you can test that organically, especially on a platform like TikTok, where the organic reach is still really large. So you can get organic testing just by putting content out into the ecosystem on TikTok. The algorithm will tell you which creative is the best because there's actual organic reach.
And it doesn't matter on TikTok how many followers you have in order to get some reach. Is that a correct statement?
Right.
Explain that if you would, because I think there's a misnomer in the industry that you think you have to have a ton of followers in order to get some reach. TikTok's a little different, right?
Yes, it is, because it's a slightly different algorithm where it's based on it's a content algorithm. So the algorithms of Instagram and TikTok work slightly differently. So yes, that's why for TikTok, it's a great platform to test your creative. But the broader point of that being, again, before you jump into paid, which is often the first thing people think about, is again, the foundation, but then having and being able to test creative. And a good way of doing that is partnering with influencers and creators.
How do you do that? Are there agencies that you can work with that are legitimate, or do you just go out and find them yourself? What's your approach at Mint?
So again, we do influencer marketing. It's been a day one service that Mint has provided, and we come at it from two different angles: influencer marketing and creators, right? And the two get interconnected in this industry quite often because
I don't know the difference. What is the difference?
So for us, and I think broadly speaking, an influencer is someone who is influencing a community of people, their followers, right? So I'm aligning with a certain influencer because they are on brand, whatever that means and looks like, and their community. The more important piece is their community is engaged and also our target consumer. So you're leveraging them to connect with their communities. Whereas a creator for us is they don't necessarily, we're not using them or working with them to tap into a community. They're able to create really good ads. So our influencer product at Mint is aligning you with influencers who have communities you want to tap into. Our creator product is purely to create ads. So we have vetted creators who we just know create really good TikToks, really good video ads. And we work with them, provide them the product, a creative script to produce ads that we know based on research and testing and analysis are going to, hopefully perform well when they're run as paid advertising across Instagram and TikTok.
How do those two different approaches get paid? My guess would be that a creator gets paid per project and an influencer might get paid a commission on sales that are generated. Is that accurate?
Yeah, typically, yeah. So a creator, you're typically paying just for the production of that one asset. For us, we have creators who are in our ecosystem. They're on retainers because we do quite a lot of these UGC ads because it's the content that performs typically really well across the social platforms. Influencers, I mean, there's many ways to approach influencer fees, right? They typically command a larger fee because they know they have an audience in a community you're trying to tap into, right? So the price is higher. It can be a one-off campaign. It can be a month-long contract. We've even done things with really big influencers where it's, there's maybe minority equity plays plus like a performance payout. Typically as well, we're giving them a code so they can directly give their audience like a benefit. So like a code, and they will get a referral payout based on the revenue their code and unique tracking links provided.
I would think something like that would be pretty critical from your point of view because you can track the results that way.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's really beneficial. The other thing as well, even with the influencers, is you can take that content and run it in your advertising. Um, and there's things called whitelisting and spark ads. So that is where, let's say you're partnering with me to run an ad for your brand, and I'm an influencer. I have a community of people. So typically, when you see an ad from a brand, it's coming from the brand,
Right.
right? But what you can do through whitelisting and spark ads is the ad can look like it's coming from me. So that's really powerful because you can directly target then my followers. But then if I am an influencer and I have some level of social proof and notoriety within the vertical that we're looking to target or you're looking to target, and ads coming from me versus a brand, the people might be more inclined to engage with that because, well, I don't know this brand, but I know him.
Right.
So it kind of like it's a good way of increasing the potential initial engagement.
And that's just the agreement that you have to have in writing, obviously, with the influencer that you're going to work with.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Do the same creative ads work on TikTok versus Instagram versus Snap or anything like that? Or do you need to do different creatives for each?
I'm a big believer in contextualized creative for the platform. However, um, there is a we are seeing that um, vertical videos that perform on TikTok are performing well on Instagram, right? With things like Reels. So there's a real benefit there for brands because you can have the same base asset, but customize things like, overlays and music and everything else. TikTok is very trend driven, right? So, applying trending music or trending sounds or questions or different elements on a TikTok, but you can take that same asset and have different overlays and different elements and run it on Instagram. So I think you have to pay attention to the nativeness of how creative feels on each platform. If it feels really out of sync of the rest of your feed, it's typically not going to perform super well. But you can take the same base asset and customize elements of it for the different platforms. And we're seeing that work really well.
What social media platform is not working? Where people are spending money on it, it's just getting harder and harder to make it work, or um, it's not ready yet. Like I never hear anyone in your position talking about advertising on Snapchat. Is that because it doesn't work as well, or what's the story there?
Yeah, um, I think every platform has its place potentially. Um, I would say, I mean, we don't run a lot of Snapchat ads. We've tested Snapchat in the past, and for our brands, our verticals, where our consumer is, we've not found it to be super successful. However, I do know that Snapchat performs incredibly well for other brands and other types of advertising. I know it works really well for lead generation, right? Okay. So if you're looking to just drive leads and acquire kind of customer data to then send emails and SMS to, or drive up your SMS list, Snapchat works really well for that.
What do the demographics look like on Snap versus TikTok?
I think quite similar, although TikTok is evolving to have more. The general misconception about TikTok is it's just kids.
Yeah.
But if you actually look at the data of who is on the platform consuming content, I think the largest age range is like 25 to 35, and there are kind of Gen X users, and increasingly so on the platform. I think there's a difference between who's creating the bulk of the content versus who's consuming. The bulk of the content does appear to be skewing younger, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the people consuming all the content is of the same demographic. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. So for the audience, just let's help clarify what they're probably thinking. If they're on TikTok and they're looking at dance videos, they think that's that's what TikTok will keep feeding them, and that's what they think TikTok is, if I understand it correctly. The algorithms are going to feed you what you watch.
Yeah.
Is that accurate? So if somebody's
Yeah,
really focused on makeup trends and you've got a makeup client, that's really, you're going to hit your audience that way.
Right, exactly. And so like that's where if you're looking at TikTok from a brand advertising or brand marketing or influencer perspective, that's where finding the right content and creators, do you see what I mean? It's so important to do that. So you're tapping into that niche.
And it's been so long since I spent money on it. I mean, we spend money on advertising at Quiet Light, but I don't do it. Chris does it. What are you measuring on TikTok in terms of, how to determine whether the campaign is a success or not? Are you're able to track actual converted orders? What do you look at in a situation like that when you're doing paid media, or actually with the influencers as well?
Yeah. So for us, and this isn't just specific to TikTok, but any advertising, as most of us know, but if you don't, so when was it? Maybe 2 years ago now. The privacy changes that Apple rolled out limited the data attribution into these ad platforms. So those numbers are indicative at best, right? So that's where we leverage tools like Triple Whale, which is it's a third-party attribution measurement analytics platform that doesn't suffer the same attribution loss as what is happening in platform because the data comes from pixel base outside the platform. We also look at things like
so just so I understand Triple Whale. How do you set it up? Is an e-commerce brand owner signing up for Triple Whale and running their ads through there, so it's all being tracked and that way, or how does it work? If you don't mind just stepping off.
Yeah, no, of course. So Triple Whale, from a setup perspective, it's relatively straightforward. It's a Shopify app that you install into your Shopify store.
Okay.
And then you put tags in place on the creatives within the platforms that you're running paid media, and it's those tags that populate, and you have to integrate those platforms into Triple Whale. So you can integrate your Facebook, your Instagram, your TikTok, Google, email, SMS. They've got a really robust suite of integrations that pull all that data of like spend, but then also site-side performance into a dashboard so that you can have a better, more holistic understanding without the data loss piece of actual channel performance. And that's really, so for us, it's a combination of in-platform indicative numbers, Triple Whale attribution, but then we also, we're looking at, it's called MER, which is marketing efficiency ratio, which is a very simplified, it's kind of simple in, to be honest with you, is how much revenue are you making and against how much spend, right? So that ratio overall, when you understand things like profit and margin and CAC and LTV, that helps us understand which channels are performing and is this actually driving profitability and business success based on how much we're spending against total revenue and total profit.
So many details. God, it's so much harder than it used to be. I'm getting old. The Triple Whale, is it literally only Shopify, or does it work, or is there a similar product for other platforms that you know of?
That's a great question. I don't know if Triple Whale I should know this.
Are all of your clients Shopify clients? Does that really kind of narrow your field?
They are.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. And, Triple Whale is, there are other platforms that do this. Triple Whale just happens to be the one that we use. And, I maybe biasedly so think they're the best. They're not paying me to say that, although they should. But there are other platforms, that help you with that. I think that the takeaway though is you do need to have that ability to analyze data outside of platforms, because the data in there is simply wrong, right? There have been instances where we've run TikTok ads and in-platform performance has looked shocking, but then through
shockingly
things like
good or shockingly bad?
Shockingly bad. But then in Triple Whale and in terms of post-purchase surveys, where we're directly asking people potentially, how did you hear about us, et cetera, TikTok is coming up as a core platform that's helping drive increases in customer acquisition and revenue.
Excellent. Future prediction. What's the next TikTok? Like for a long time, it was Facebook, then Instagram, and people started to warm up to TikTok a little bit. Now it's actually working, and you're proving that, as many others are. Is there another
Yeah.
one that is sort of you should jump on it before the rates go up and it grows like crazy, or are we not there yet with any other platform?
I still think TikTok is the one that if you haven't tested, you should be. You know, at the very least, from an organic content perspective. Um, you know, it's hard to. I think a lot about the future, right? In my role, like what's next? How do we stay ahead of the curve? And being in the industry from MySpace to now, there was there was there was gaps in the market, right? And you look at TikTok, it's like, you know, it's Vine, but you know, enhanced. It's I think we're going to see an evolution of existing platforms. It's hard to envisage a world whereby another app that showcases videos,
Right.
15, like where's the uniqueness in that, right? Instagram dominates image, social sharing and kind of communities. TikTok dominates the kind of like that quick creative video first format. You've got YouTube shorts coming out. It's hard to envision a platform that's going to do something so unique within the capabilities of sharing videos and images with friends that's going to take market share from them. What I think the what I think is happening and will happening is more separate niche communities within those broader platforms. Do you see what I mean? So, like, you think of all the different communities that sit within Instagram and Facebook and TikTok, just niches, right? So you got, you know, TikTok, there's dancers, there's chefs, there's fashion, more kind of like specificity around the fact that there are these core kind of like communities within these platforms.
Isn't that
You
like
look at
you're talking
Facebook.
about like Facebook groups?
Yeah, I mean, similar concept, right? Where you're narrowing. There's a narrowing down potentially of the specificity of the content you're viewing based on the communities you're super engaged with. Um, and you know, we look at all these platforms as well, and you can kind of see how they're thinking about things because you know what I think of it this way: if I'm Adam Mazzeri at Instagram, hope I'm pronouncing his last name right. For me, for Instagram to be successful, I need to get as many people onto my platform, keep them on there for as long as possible, as engaged as possible, because then I can monetize the eyeballs. And how they're doing that is through creators, right? So you look at platforms like TikTok, YouTube Shorts, I mean, YouTube in general, Instagram, they're incentivizing creators by paying them and offering them pay through on revenue to create content. So you even look at how the platforms are thinking about things, that they're not just these days, everyone come on and create what you want and we'll just allow you all to interconnect and we're just a social networking platform. They're turning more into media platforms where they're trying to curate and create that content to keep people engaged. And so I think like as a brand, thinking about how you leverage and tap into that, which is why I'm such a big believer in, you know, working and partnering with influencers and creators as a brand, because it's not just beneficial for all the pure marketing reasons, but you're tapping into the 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 strategy that these platforms themselves are deploying to increase engagement.
Where's the best place, either online or off, or podcast or not, where people can go to learn more about working with influencers versus just hiring somebody at Mint Media? Or do you have lots of content on your site that would educate them as well?
You know, we don't on our site actually. Our site is very basic, unfortunately. I mean, I think there's in terms of like real tangibles, you know, in terms of execution, I do think speaking to and partnering with experts in this space is probably beneficial. There is a lot of information out there on Twitter, on LinkedIn. I put information out. A lot of people in my industry put good information out around approaches. I think the thing is even if you understand the broad approach, because it's not hard, right? Influencer marketing, find people, send them products, get them to produce content. But the secret sauce is the execution. Do you see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I you know, because I think if you asked a poll of 100 people, does influencer marketing work? You'd get 50% that said yes and 50% said absolutely not. It does work.
It
We've
does
seen
work.
it work.
Yeah.
I think that the nuance around influencers is, well, what's the execution? How well are you like sourcing the influencers, really understanding the community benefits and kind of structuring creative and everything else. So I think if you're new to it, I would say vet a couple of experts, but there is a lot of free information out there on kind of the broad approach.
I think you need to start to develop some content to educate people on this, because there is nothing out there. When I talk to people, it's just such a buckshot approach, and it's easy to give up because maybe they're not using things like Triple Whale to track it and things of that nature. And is there, for those out there in the audience that are listening that may be influencers, is there one place that they can go, or two or three places to sort of connect with brands to, earn a living as an influencer if they're just starting out and gaining their audience? Or is it they would do the reverse and say, I really love this particular brand, I'm going to reach out to them and see if I can work with them as an influencer? What's the best approach there?
Yeah, that's a good question, actually. I think reaching out to brands directly is a good idea. I think potentially even reaching out to agencies. I'm an influencer. I produce this type of content. I have this type of community. Agencies benefit from having multiple brands so there might be a fit there. There are also like influencer platforms that you can get set up in. So a lot of brands and agencies use platforms like Grin, Incense, Tagger. They're kind of like influencer prospecting tools that pull from a range of different influencers and creators, so that you can, versus going through Instagram one by one searching, it aggregates them based on search results. So I think getting set up into some of those platforms would also be beneficial. But across those three routes,
I've coached the influencer questions. I keep asking these questions about influencers. I think
that's okay.
The well is dry. You mentioned something about SMS a while back. You brought it a couple of times. My question regarding SMS, and then we can wrap it up, is: do you find it's best for finding new customers or retaining existing customers, or neither? What's your approach with it?
I think it's both. I think it's a great tool for both. I think building customer loyalty through SMS, because you think about it, it's a very direct communication channel. Emails I can turn off and on. I can see them when I want to see them. Like text messages, it feels a lot more personal. So I think if you're a brand, with an SMS marketing strategy, it really is a loyalty play, right? Because they know you. Getting a text message you wouldn't do it from a data perspective anyway, but if you're not super familiar with a brand, like overdoing SMS messaging is probably a negative experience, because it feels too, it's like intrusive.
Very much so.
So for me, it does work well as a initial acquisition strategy, but that's always off the back of them showing intent of giving you their SMS number, obviously. So they want the offer or promotion or whatever it is that you're using. But then the real long tail of SMS is that real community building, that loyalty building, LTV kind of strategy.
Speaking of communities, do you find that any of your customers build communities that, like with forums and Slack communities and things of this nature, so customers can talk to customers if it's a particular type of brand that they're talking about their experiences and giving advice to each other as customers is helpful, or is that something that you haven't experienced yet?
Yeah, no, I think Facebook, there's a really good example of a brand called Ovi. Great guys, great brand. Actually, I'm a small investor into the brand. They've done a phenomenal job of building their Facebook community. I don't know exactly how many people are in it, but it's 20,000 or more, which is big for a supplement brand. And the strategy there is you're connecting people who are looking. Ovi is a kind of like women's health supplement. And so you're connecting these women together who have a shared passion for improving their physical well-being or physical health through fitness. Yeah. But the content that goes in there, I think this is where you have to be quite smart, is it can't be an advert for Obvi. So the community is built on the basis of how can we bring people together and provide them the opportunity to interconnect, and also us add value from an additional content perspective. So it's like workout tips, cooking tips, all these sorts of things, supplement tips, underpinned by the fact that you're in this group that is kind of like, run by and managed by Obvi, which is the supplement brand, which can help in that. So that's a really good example.
How do you spell the Obvi? Can you spell
OBVI?
OBVI, so people can look at it. Another one for folks to take a look at is Live Bearded. You can look at their website or social media stuff, or on Facebook. They've got an incredible culture around bearded men and men's grooming products, and it's that same thing. Guys, just talking together and sharing their grilling photos and recipes and that kind of stuff, and it's pretty cool stuff. So really, really important. Well, Daniel, this has been great. I could talk to you for another hour. Any last thoughts, any last tips or advice or guidance you want to give to e-commerce entrepreneurs out there, brands out there that might need your help?
Listen to your customers, avoid shiny object syndrome, and reach out if you have any questions.
And how do they find you?
Best place is, the website for Mint is mint-performancemarketing.com. You can find me directly on LinkedIn, Daniel James. I'm on Twitter as well. But LinkedIn and the website, probably the best.
What is that funky Twitter handle? I think it's kind of a funky one, isn't it?
It's not great for the personal brand because it's Foodog85, FOODOG85. I have 2 food dogs tattooed on my chest. When I started my Twitter, I was like, I wasn't doing it at the time through the eyes of being an agency owner and someone in the space. I was like, that's a pretty cool name. So I just thought Food Dog 85. I tried to change it to my name, but obviously every iteration of Daniel James has been taken, unless I want like Daniel James 7397. It's not going to work. So I need to speak to Elon and get him to give me the Daniel James.
I'm
Twitter,
having lunch with him later.
Handle.
I'll send an intro. Yeah, there you
Drop
go.
a note. I appreciate it.
I'm glad to help. All right, man. Thanks for coming on the show. Look forward to connecting in the future.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Joe.